A kakistocracy is when any organization, be that a small company, mega soulless corp, or generally at largest scale a form of government in which the worst, least qualified, or most unscrupulous individuals are in power. The term comes from the Greek words kakistos, meaning worst, and kratos, meaning rule or power. Essentially, a kakistocracy is rule by the worst. And remember, those who thirst the most through power, and often through much of history because of their iron will to gain it, sadly often attain it, and because they are the least honorable, are the opposite of those who should actually have it. They fail upwards. CAC upwards failures completely disregard principles of honesty, fairness, public service, and accountability to govern effectively, and instead prioritize plutocratic gain, kleptocratic gain, and or personal gain or nepotism over the well-being of the public. Kakistocracy is often used as a pejorative term to criticize a corporation or government or corporatized government perceived as corrupt, self-serving, or ineffective for the people. And its signature call sign characteristics are corruption plus incompetence plus low ethical standards by those within the formal halls of power, who only admit those into their power cult because of little to nothing to do with their qualifications and nearly everything to do with their blind loyalty, which inevitably leads to crap decision-making and ineffective policies for the working class at best, or highly damaging ones for the working class at worst. Alchemy teaches that in binary reality, meaning the material world, meaning the earth realm, meaning your personal life when your meat suit is breathing oxygen, and when doing so, going out there and having a career in the professional world, that there will always be some level of dysfunction. Thus, there will always be some level of corruption. Any place you've worked likely demonstrates this. We worked and lived in New Zealand for the better part of a year in our late 20s. And the New Zealand government is often listed as one of the least corrupt, most well-functioning governments in the world, be that it's small in a somewhat homogenous country. It even has a healthy amount of Maori, meaning indigenous people to New Zealand's representation of MPs in their parliament, some of which on occasion perform hakas, their traditional ceremonial dance, which is designed to intimidate opponents, not just on the All Blacks rugby field, but also occasionally on their parliament floor to protest some occasional hot garbage imperial bills that want to reduce working class, poor, or indigenous liberty. So even though New Zealand is quite good, of course it's never going to be 100% non-corrupt. And outside of nature, anything created by man never will be. In our country, the US of A, up until 2024, there was corruption, but systems were generally working as intended because those in power actually tried to represent the people. But when you hate people that have to work for a living, now at the time of this writing in early 2025, those we hate people because they're born in Sid and not in our cult folks are back in power and like never before have cranked up the redlining levels of their corrupt criminals running the Justice Department, oil barons running the Environmental Protection Agency, demonstrably underqualified military personnel running the Department of Defense, which is of course really the Department of Offense, and a convicted felon who should be in jail for the rest of his life and wannabe dictator in the office of the Commander-in-Chief. We can have a separate conversation about how much these agencies really do what they claim to do. But when they're also literally installing someone from World Wrestling Federation to head the Department of Education, that's Mountain Dew soda instead of natural spring water. We have a similar level of respect for World Wrestling Federation that we do for Insane Clown Posse. And the Keck Clown Show would also appoint the Grinch in charge of the Department of Christmas if they weren't already so mind-controlled by the Christianization of the winter solstice. Now, why is this? And a remembrance that George Carlin said it so well. Now, there's one thing you might have noticed I don't complain about: politicians. Everybody complains about politicians. Everybody says they suck. Well, where do you think these politicians come from? They don't fall out of the sky. They don't pass through a membrane from another reality. They come from American parents and American families and American homes and American schools and American churches, American businesses and American universities. And they are elected by American citizens. This is what we have to offer. It's what our system far too often produces: garbage in, garbage out. If you have selfish, ignorant citizens, you're going to get selfish, ignorant leaders. Term limits ain't going to do any good. You're just going to end up with a new batch of selfish, ignorant Americans. So maybe it's not the politicians who suck. Maybe something else sucks around here, like the public. Now, we certainly wouldn't say the public in its entirety sucks, but we would say large swaths of the American public can suck very much. i.e. those who vote less democratic and more authoritarian, because of three simple things. Heavy indoctrination into religion that sucks, with little education or no education that sucks, stacked on top of consistent long-term exposure to a mountain of media that sucks. All by design, which we will continue to discuss.